Welcome to the Transform Legal video podcast. My name is Matthew Newton. It's brought to you in connection with Nexian. We're an IT and technology partner for the legal sector. The Transform Legal video podcast is an opportunity for myself to meet with legal minds and voices within the legal sector to explore the subject of digital transformation. We're going to, at times over the series of conversations over the coming months, draw on Patrick Turch's digital transformation pyramid, which you can find on the video podcast homepage, which talks about the challenge of digital transformation being split into three sections: the business model, the operating model, and then the technology. And during this series of conversations with the leading voices in the legal sector, we're going to delve into those three pillars. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Oliver Tromp. Oliver is the Vice President of Actionstep UK. I'm super pleased to have Oliver along because Actionstep are pretty much revolutionizing the legal software market currently, helping law firms move away from legacy systems to a cloud-based software practice management system that allows them to truly move forward their digital strategy. Let's get on with the conversation. Hi, Oliver.
Hello.
Great to see you again. Technical gremlins to one side. It's great to have you here to explore this subject of digital transformation. For those that haven't met you, and when even though you're super busy at every event, it seems, under the sun, that's not a British accent, I hear. So you're not a native of these lands.
I'm not originally from the US, but my wife and I moved over here about 4 years ago, and yeah, this has become home now. So
yeah, wonderful. And we've shared IPAs and an English pub and an Indian food. So yeah, you're very much ingrained in the culture. So we're going to talk about digital transformation today in the legal sector, and we're going to delve into a subject that's close to your heart, which is intuitive automation. But just to think more broadly about the legal sector to begin with, your background previous to working in the sector was within finance. And I think a great starting point is to understand what you have seen as the differences between the finance sector and your experience operating within that and the legal sector. How do the two compare? Is the legal sector above or ahead or behind when it comes to digital transformation?
yeah, it definitely depends where you are, but I would say in the UK, it seems like finance has been a little bit ahead of legal, maybe even as much as 5 or 10 years ahead of legal. Both industries have had waves of digital transformation. And I think one thing that I've really noticed about the legal industry in this market is it a lot of work has gotten to where we are now. I mean, a lot of law firms adopted their first, practice management software in 70s or the 80s, and they've probably had a few different iterations since then. And so I think one thing I've learned is, to not discount all the work that's gotten law firms to where they are and how much good work has been done in legal tech, even though we've kind of entered a new wave in probably the last 4 or 5 years.
And that new wave, you're in terms of the legal sector, it's trying to overcome some challenges that remain, I guess. So the firms that I speak to, so we've been working with SME law firms and larger law firms for probably 20 years or so. And there's been lots of momentum that's happened over the last kind of 10 years or so in, first of all, the first iteration of moving to private cloud and getting servers out of offices, starting the first wave of allowing mobile working and being able to share information between sites. So when I started working in the legal sector, every office of a multi-office law firm quite often had their own database and their own software system because you couldn't share information between those sites. So this latest wave, what challenges do you feel that the law firms are trying to overcome, and what how is the progress? how are they getting on in terms of moving this digital strategy forward?
Yeah. I think because so much good work has been done over the last, few decades, to get law firms to where they are now, a lot of mid-tier law firms have very customized practice management systems. They may even be on a version that's 10 years old or hasn't been updated in 10 years because they don't want to lose that customization or the workflows or the things that they've done. So all that work has got them to where they are today, but it makes it very challenging to move to a new practice management system. And actually, a lot of firms have started, moving in the right direction as far as adopting cloud technology, adopting various different automation tools, and um, they're taking steps in the right direction, but they're sort of hamstrung to some degree because they're on legacy systems as well, and sometimes they might be running five or six or maybe even 10 different solutions that don't really talk to each other. So you run into issues with data silos or just duplication of effort because you have to manually update multiple different solutions in order to have one single source of truth when they're not joined up. And actually, um, a lot of um, a lot of these legacy systems have been acquired over the past kind of 5 years as well, which brings a different set of challenges as far as, not wanting to integrate with other technologies because they are owned by a competitor or things like that. So I think there's actually a lot of resistance that law firms are facing, I think, in trying to modernize and go through this new wave of digital transformation. I think they really want to actually, especially since COVID. COVID was sort of like a band-aid for a lot of firms that they did what they needed to do to get through that period as far as making hybrid working accessible and collaboration across different sites more accessible. But it wasn't ever I think a lot of the solutions that law firms put into place were done quickly because they had to get through that time. And now law firms are really, really over the last couple of years starting to think about, okay, what's our solution for the next 10, 15 years?
So yeah, I mean, so some of the conversations that we've got lined up on this series are with those working within law firms that are struggling to move forward change programs and have kind of found that their firm maybe has struggled to deal with the amount of change that's required, maybe have struggled with identifying the problems that they're trying to solve. We've got other conversations with people talking about the business model and actually maybe needed to start to understand how their clients want to serve, where they want to lay their priorities in terms of growing their business. Some of the challenges that you're identifying there is within the tech stack. It's within there's that desire to move forward. There's the desire to evolve their digital strategy to serve clients better and to be more optimized when it comes to their internal operations. But their tech stack is holding them back. So it's kind of legacy systems that's holding back. Would you agree that? So there's the will to do it, and there's the desire. Maybe there's the people. There's the people and the process in place, but there's not necessarily the technology to be able to enable that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as much as a tech guy myself, as much as I'd like to say that tech is the absolute most important thing, it's still the people at law firms, and change management is still so important. And it's a long process as well. I mean, if you're adopting a new AML solution, that might not require as much change management. But if you're changing practice management systems, especially off of a system that you've been on for maybe 15, 20 years, you probably have people in your firm that have never used another system, and that's all they know at your firm. It's very much ingrained into your process and the way you operate. So yeah, the change management piece is massive, but also, moving forward, it's so important to have a joined up tech ecosystem. And I think that, again, that's kind of how law firms have been hamstrung. If they're on legacy systems that haven't given them the flexibility to integrate with the other tools they love and that they use on a day-to-day basis, or it just hasn't given them the ability to modernize and change process. I mean, like process in a law firm has changed in some ways over the last 20 years as well, or at least in certain departments, or maybe even operationally. So being able to be agile, being able to change as your firm changes. A lot of law firms in the past, since they bought their last system, they probably look quite a lot different. Maybe they've added new departments or they've grown. They may have gone through some different mergers or opened up new offices. So having a system that's agile and flexible and allows them to change over time is important and isn't necessarily something that was as critical 15 years ago. You could just maybe buy another server and it just looks a little bit different now.
Because I'm the spread of the increase in the demand for kind of digital services, to deliver services digitally, the demand for tech tools to be able to close gaps in capability internally. All of this has created tech spread, hasn't it? So you're pointing towards in the past where a law firm may have one core PMS system and it would do 95% of what they need it to do. Now you've got the rise of what we from an IT point of view call shadow IT, where you've got these various tools that pop up across HR, across marketing, across whatever it may be, all of these different divisions, let alone the legal work areas of the business. So you've got now a spread of tooling that's popped up. So there's not this one PMS, there's maybe 15 or 16 tools that are potentially required. You've got the demand of the clients that want to be served digitally in a more effective way, whether it be AML checks and onboarding or whether it be milestone updates. So you've got this spread of tech. But the challenge is, I think you're pointing towards, is the law firm making this all work together, plugging this all in when you're a law firm that's maybe, if you're a mid-tier law firm with limited development or IT capabilities in-house. Is that what you're kind of seeing, this spread of tech tools, but then, to trying to solve these problems, but actually it creates more problems in itself, getting them to talk to each other?
Yeah, it does definitely. And it creates additional risk as well. I mean, that for instance, if you're doing a conflict check and there's certain data that's in one system and isn't across all of your systems, then you may miss out. So it is so important that all these different tools join up, and it is a good thing. I think, I mean, we used to always talk about all-in-one or best in breed, and I think what's interesting is Actionstep is an all-in-one practice management system, case management system, document management system, but there is no true all-in-one system in 2024. I mean, there's so many incredible point solutions, and I think if you look at the average mid-tier law firm, they've probably adopted 5 to 10 of these over the last several years. And things like AML or IDV or even risk and compliance or bundling or digital forms or AI tools. There's all these different kinds of solutions. And I think every law firm looks different as well. If you look at if you've got two kind of large regional high street type firms in an area, they probably look pretty different actually in their process and the way they operate and their history and maybe even their clients. And so their solutions, while they may both want to use a Formivo or something like that, they might have very different needs on a client onboarding side or different desires on a client onboarding side. So giving firms nowadays that type of flexibility to use whatever solutions are best for them is really important. And if you're on a legacy system, it's challenging to do that because you might decide that these are the 5 best point solutions for us, but none of them integrate with our current system, or maybe a few of them do, but then actually we need to replace one that we've been using for the past year because it didn't actually work, and then you have to think about a new integration. So I speak to firms a lot that have maybe 2 or 3 IT people on staff who are experts in that practice management system. And those IT people always come to me and say, well, look, I really like your solution, but I'll be out of a job because my expertise is in this specific software. And what we always tell them is, like, you actually won't. What you can do with a modern solution, if you're technical and if you have a background in code or things like that, is actually incredible. It's probably a lot more exciting than spending a day on a small workflow change, because in the old system it takes that long to do that. It's higher value and it's more interesting and innovative things that these technical experts can work on.
And that's why, bringing it to the subject at hand. So that's why you talk so powerfully and passionately about the desire to pursue intuitive automation as the real that should be the real focus for law firms. And pushing to one side all of the hype around AI and focusing instead around intuitive automation, because it will have the greatest impact on the law firm. So could you just explain what you mean by intuitive automation? And you've already started to point towards why it's important, but why it is important.
Yeah, of course. So, obviously, automation is not new for the legal industry. I think actually that's an area in tech that the legal industry's done really well. And we've had workflow as part of a lot of these practice management or case management solutions for years. And I think the key with intuitive automation is that it's not just automating high transactional type work. It's not just automating something like conveyancing. It's also not even just automating process. What it is doing is it's actually thinking about taking a step back and thinking about how do my people work in the firm? Because again, that might be very different or very unique to a firm, how your people operate, how they think, what are they doing next? Even if you implement the best workflows and processes, your people may not use those. They may find a way around or do things a different way. So it's really understanding, how do my people work? What are they doing in their day-to-day? How are they thinking about what comes next in their kind of legal process or workflow? And it's figuring out where to automate those types of things. And it's not just, again, within certain departments. I think this is important to do across every single department. There's so many little areas where lawyers are finding workarounds, or they're doing manual tasks, and certain things could be streamlined and things could be automated. Even on the operational side of law firms, within finance or IT, there's probably process that can be tightened and automated. So it's taking that step back and really understanding how your people work and automating things in a way that mirrors that and sort of anticipates what people are going to do next, so that it does it before they even have to do it themselves.
And that's which is, it's a great perspective to have compared to what's come before us, which is replacing systems with a new user interface, but actually doing things in the same way as the previous system did, and the previous system to that did. I find law firms, we do a lot of business analysis within law firms, mapping their processes, identifying blockers, challenges, opportunities within their key business processes, and then helping them fit technology to that to be able to improve things. And what we regularly find within processes and workflows within law firms are inefficiencies that have existed for 10 or 15 years, maybe over multiple iterations of new software packages being rolled out, because it's always just the way it's always been. So been very human powered in certain areas, or maybe even worked to worked with the flaws of the system rather than looking to have improved it. So you're turning on their head and saying, look, what you believe in is empowering the people within these law firms to actually get technology to work for them and on behalf of them, rather than that person being a slave to the system somewhat. So
exactly.
It's
technology that rather than fitting your process into the way that the technology works, molding a technology, and not just one, but an entire kind of tech ecosystem or tech stack around your best way of working and your people's best way of working. I mean, lawyers are highly educated and well paid, and they, I think the key for law firms to truly succeed, and the ones that are doing the best, are the ones that are allowing lawyers to do the highest value activity, time with clients, and time strategy, or building their team, or expanding into different areas. Just the high value activity, not the kind of mundane, heavy human effort work that can be automated or can be streamlined.
And so I mentioned Actionstep just having a huge impact already in the UK, and that impact just seems to be growing by the week and the month, let alone the year. So how does Actionstep support that? Support this pursuit of intuitive automation?
Yeah, well, we've specifically built and designed Actionstep to be flexible. So we have an open API which allows us to integrate with pretty much anyone, and we're always looking for additional integrations that can just add value to our customers. Um, and it's a lot easier to integrate again with a cloud system that has an open API than it is with maybe a legacy system. So that's one way. We want to give firms the flexibility to build and choose the right tools for themselves. And so sometimes we'll have an integration already out of the box. Sometimes we won't, and we'll very happily explore whether that's something that we can do. But also, I think the key is giving firms the I guess like the autonomy to be able to do what they want to do with the system. And so we've got internal kind of specialists and experts that can help and can come alongside. But I think the other key is working with really technical and innovative companies in the market that have been like you have been working with law firms for a long time to improve process, to understand process, to help design systems, and allowing them to just kind of think outside the box and yeah and innovate. Really, I think that's the key. And the firms that are probably having the most fun with this are the ones that really take that on and try new things with the system. And actually, sometimes we hear about firms that are super happy with Actionstep, and we're trying to understand, what do you love about it? What types of things have you done with the system? And sometimes we'll see, they'll give us a glimpse of what they've done, what they've kind of built with our system, and it blows our mind. It's not something that we would have even thought about. And so I think that's where it gets really fun, is when firms take the modern tech and then take it to the next level, because with a flexible modern platform, you're able to do that. You're not necessarily limited to what the tech offers you out of the box. There's so much you can do with that tech over time as well. Like when a firm goes live with a new system, that's only kind of the starting point of what they're going to be doing over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so it's really fun to see firms that have been using Actionstep for longer and really kind of harnessed that and built automation across the entire firm. It might start with things like conveyancing or personal injury or other kind of areas where you have more defined process, but that's okay. When you choose a system, a modern system that hopefully you're going to use for a really long time, it's kind of an ongoing process of iterating and figuring out where can we automate. How can we maybe bring in a point solution in an area that's pretty niche to be able to streamline the process and improve our client experience? So it's kind of a combination, I guess, of working with us, working with our kind of implementation partners, consulting partners like Nexian, and then also firms just kind of using the tools that are provided and building creative things.
So the future in your view is best of breed rather than, so obviously the last 5 years in the UK has been really dominated from consolidators, and if we think about the challenge that we started to paint at the beginning there was that there's a lot more complexity within in the legal sector when it comes to IT and tech. If I can put put myself in the shoes of a law firm owner or business leader, over the last 10 years, there's been a lot more opportunity provided by technology, but the complexity has risen alongside that. And it must be very difficult for law firm leaders to be able to create a digital strategy that links the needs of their team, the needs of their clients, and also the capability of their tech stack. So that complexity has increased. And it's difficult to have all the skills in house to be able to deal with that. And I think that broadening of the tech stack and the increasing complexity has probably pushed people to search for an all-in-one solution, and that's where consolidators have come in the fact that I think law firms have turned to providers to provide everything, and if they can't do it in house in their core system, then to purchase plugins and other tools to fit in with that. But I think that where it has potentially led us in the legal sector is maybe a limiting of innovation occurring, because we're being forced into an ecosystem rather than being able to choose our own tooling. So I think what you're pointing towards is maybe a movement away from that into best of breed. The next kind of phase of tech within legal, allowing law firms to choose best of breed and being able to plug those tools together really effectively. And that being able to be facilitated by kind of the low code strategy from a lot of these tools. So I think you're pointing towards best of breed, being able to be plugged in together, but then internally, the internal tech teams within law firms maybe being able to do, yes, you talked about a person within legal being nervous about losing the kind of the ability to do coding and developing and whatever all that's come before it, but actually potentially achieve a lot more and a lot quicker because of it being a bit more low code. So yeah, best of breed, but actually you've been able, law firms internally and with the help of partners being able to do a lot more from these tools because they integrate effectively together.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think you hit on an interesting point, which is there have been a lot, there are a few consolidators in the market that have more of a sort of all-in-one solution beyond just practice management, case management, document management, but also maybe some of the point solutions as well, which can be a good solution for some firms. But, a lot of law firms maybe have been using the same search provider for the last 10 years and they have a relationship there and they don't want to switch to a different search provider just because they're switching to that PMS. So being able to choose the right solutions for you is really, really key. There's always going to be kind of a host. And so I think that we've sort of changed the terminology internally from, best in breed and all in one to like a platform. You need a platform that is your kind of single source of truth that can connect all the dots. And that is really the key. And I think that's also how modern systems work. I mean, if you look at most law firms are running Microsoft, and Microsoft is a platform business. It joins up a lot of different dots, and that's the world that we're familiar with. That's the world we are used to. Even if you think about Amazon, most of us have Prime, and then there's all the different channels, and there's all these different things. They're kind of becoming a platform business. Google has done that, and I think we've really kind of moved into that space as well as being kind of that single source of truth, that platform that connects and joins up all of the dots. And it's easier to do that, as a modern cloud system than it is for a legacy system. So, yeah, I think it is really important for firms to be able to choose the right tools for them and not necessarily be forced down a specific path.
And it'll be interesting to see. I talked about the digital transformation pyramid that I draw on in so many conversations with law firms, because once again, the average law firm leader, in mid-tier, they struggle to put together a digital strategy and to understand the key elements, the key components that they need. They struggle to maybe understand the skills that they need to be able to move that forward. So, thinking about that digital transformation pyramid, the top of that being business model and business strategy, and that's where it's urging law firm leaders to listen to their clients. How do their clients want to be engaged with? How do they want to have services delivered, and so on and so forth? Where obviously law firms quite often are 4 or 5 businesses in one, because you've got strong separate departments serving different legal needs. But that pyramid talks about and promotes them law firms thinking about their business strategy. Then we go into the operating model, and then into the bottom element, which is the tech stack. And I suppose it's just leading me to think about how this will influence that middle section, that operating model, and the skills that are required. Because over the last 10 years or so in legal, I've seen an evolution of internal teams, and I've seen a movement of tech people and IT people moving away from traditional. I'm doing the symbol of a spanner there, because is that virtual technical spanner where they're kind of keeping the lights on, they're managing infrastructure. It was doing looking after the hardware. Then we've kind of seen a growth of developers within especially the larger tier of law firms, developing these systems to within an inch of their lives. But more recently, I've seen an increase in business analysts within law firms,
Mhm.
and a transition of legal people coming into the kind of tech space and bringing with them their knowledge as to what they would like their tech tooling to do. And I'm just thinking about how, what the picture you're painting with the low code kind of ecosystem, this ecosystem that's joined up, and your ability to plug things into this single source
Mhm.
of truth, create automations, move data around, and how it's going to affect these internal teams. I can see more and more people with legal backgrounds able to get involved with
Mhm.
utilizing these tools to be able to really truly move
Mhm.
the law firm forward in leaps and bounds, because there's not going to be that blocker in terms of
Mhm.
a high level of knowledge around development and
Yep.
programming language and such like. I don't know
Yep.
whether you agree, one
Yeah,
revolution is going to trigger another.
definitely. Yeah. I mean, we've had firms where, they've said with their old system it took, 6 months to get an apostrophe added to a letter template. And then, in a modern system, they can do that themselves without a technical background in 5 seconds. So I think again, it's giving people the tools to be able to really, create their own success from a tech standpoint, and allowing the really technical people to work on higher value, really clever automation. And I think that's the thing that a, a lot of firms have not been able to do necessarily, because they've been, the tools they've had have been limiting. And so it might take, a week to build a certain small automation in a legacy system, which will take 5 minutes in a low code system like Actionstep.
Yeah, which I think is going to be the key to leaping forward. And I look across all of the professional services sectors, and what we're seeing is the people with the long-standing expertise in actually doing the job and delivering that legal work or the finance work or whatever, taking more control of their tech tooling. Um,
Mhm.
so, what's the starting point? Do you think, for law firms out there that, this sounds great in terms of being able to take more control to use, not best of breed, but to build an
Mhm.
ecosystem. Is it starting with that central piece, that single source of truth? Is that the starting point? How do they where do they start really? How do they understand whether maybe they are lacking in some of these automations and some of this capability?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a few key things to do, and a lot of firms are doing this now. I mean, because change management is so important, I think it's really really critical that law firms just listen. That the leadership, the IT, whoever, that they're listening to their their people, and that they understand what the key drivers are and the key needs are, and maybe some of the challenges that they've had with the existing system, or the really good things about the existing system. Again, we don't want to discount the decades of work that have gone into building some of these legacy systems and customizing them. So really understanding where they're at and then where they are trying to go is key. So that is looking at all of the other solutions that are being used. It's really doing a sort of an audit of your tech ecosystem of your tech stack. And then once you've got that, envisioning what the next 10, 15 years might look like. So, and again, I think speaking to experts in the market, speaking to other law firms that speaking to people like yourselves, or consultants, just getting a bit of a feel. I mean, the market has changed dramatically in the last several years in the UK. So, just understanding some of those changes, and I think some firms have already taken this step. Some firms would be listening to this and say, actually, no, we made that jump to the cloud 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and we're using a proper cloud solution. Um, but I think they might have a different set of frustrations, which is I moved to a solution that is cloud-based and more modern, but it's less flexible than my legacy system. So I can't do this or that. I'm trying to achieve this, but it doesn't actually offer me the same flexibility. So I think for the firms that are thinking about this, and they really want to modernize, they should also be asking the question, is this tool flexible enough to be able to, A, kind of replicate or improve on the things that we've been doing for the last 10, 15 years, but also is it going to enable us to continue iterating and changing and being agile and adopting new technology over the next 10, 15 years. So I think that's a really key distinction as well, because a lot of firms that I speak to have been let down by modern cloud technology that may work really well for some firms, but for a mid-tier firm in the UK that has spent 15 years on a legacy system and done a lot of customization of workflow or process, just may not have the juice or the flexibility that they need.
Yeah, and I mean, from my point of view, I totally agree. I think that discovery work is absolutely crucial, and I talked about the rise of business analysts within mid-tier law firms. It used to be that you wouldn't find business analysts below a 400-seat law firm or so, but more and more frequently you're finding them in that kind of, even 150 employee upwards. And the reason is, once again, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of tooling. I think law firm leaders quite find themselves frozen in terms of decision making, in terms of, do I stick or do I twist? What vendors out there should I get involved with? What challenges or priorities should I try and solve first? And I've really seen the power of business analysis over recent years in cutting through some of those questions and challenges by engaging, starting that change management process right at the beginning by engaging with your staff and capturing their wants and desires when it comes to their tech stack, and using that as the driver to change, rather than choosing a new tool that's going to do exactly as what the last tool did and then imposing it on your staff. So that discovery work, and I think, is absolutely crucial that you point towards. And that's what allows you then to bring all this fabulous tooling together into an optimized process, rather than just once again just sticking to the same tooling and trying to crowbar your systems around it. I totally agree with that discovery work, the business analysis side of things, and once again, from a tech point of view. Don't just random acts of technology. Avoid those random acts of technology where it's you're succumbing to a sales pitch rather than understanding the long-term journey of that tech partner that you're choosing to work with. You pointed towards there, the difference between cloud and true cloud, as I've seen it, and that experience, and we've seen a number of law firms feel that they're moving to the cloud, but actually it doesn't. The user experience on the other side of that, and some of the restrictions around developing the tool, means that they haven't actually taken that leap forward that they thought they had done. So what's to bring the chat to a close? What's next for Actionstep? So in terms of on the development roadmap and what additional functionalities or what's next in terms of helping solve these problems for law firms?
Yeah. Right now, we're actually investing a lot in the kind of billing and accounting side of Actionstep. But we also are a few other things that are kind of key on our roadmap. We are doing a lot of exploration around AI at the moment, obviously. But I think the key for us, I mean, what we really try to focus on is the core. What are the kind of core elements of Actionstep? And for us, it's case management, practice management, and document management. So there's some development we're doing on our DMS at the moment to just improve the document management side. There is some development we're doing on the kind of workflow and automation side, kind of continually, and then obviously the practice management, so the billing and accounts. But actually, a couple things we're really thinking about recently and doing some work on through our own development and also through partners is the client onboarding side of things. So just improving that experience, because again, the client is key, the client is center. That's what keeps the lights on at these law firms. And so trying to just streamline and improve that process, the actual end user experience of the clients by using our technology. That's one side of it that we're working on. And then also reporting is another area that we're trying to improve, just because that's such a critical aspect for law firms to be able to run their business, is just having visibility to be able to make good strategic decisions. So we have a few different kind of angles, but the biggest thing that we're working on right now that we've just put a load of engineers on is the billing and accounting side, which isn't the the sexiest
Yeah.
of areas, but it's vitally important for law
Yeah.
firms.
It's absolutely crucial, and I know that there's your integration with Zero as well is something that I've seen more law firms start to draw on actually.
Hmm.
And once again, it's that whole move towards best of breed or creating an ecosystem that's right for the purposes of that law firm. The example that I saw recently, it was a smaller law firm that had gone from a handful of employees up to 100 plus employees, and actually had stayed with Zero on that journey.
Hmm.
So they're looking to develop that, of which obviously Actionstep integrate.
Hmm.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, so yeah, brilliant. Thanks for joining us today. I mean, the key takeaways from myself that I've got from this conversation is I mean, there's so much hype around AI at the moment, but really the foundational piece for law firms as it is at the moment is to pursue that aim of intuitive automation of a single source of truth with data and workflows working through that central tool as well as other tools. It's that there's another way than rather than just trying to find this single tool that will do everything. It's maybe unrealistic as you pointed towards in 2024. And then the other thing I think that I've drawn from this is the discovery piece as well. It's understanding how do your humans want to work, how get the insight from your legal people, and then try and adapt and evolve a tool set around that, rather than put your staff in a box and restrict them because of your out the box kind of PMS only allows you to work in one way. Would that be fair?
Yeah, definitely. Very
Yeah,
fair.
wonderful. Okay, well, thanks a lot for joining me. The next session that we've got coming up in a few weeks' time is around the subject of monetizing monetizing AI and digital services. I've got not so much another friend from across the Atlantic, although he's crossed across the Atlantic now. So Tom Connor, the founder of Nexian, he's based in Los Angeles, but he's actually of Irish descent. So he moved from Ireland, where he was working with a number of the top firms there, across to the US to help some US firms. And Tom's doing some fantastic work at the moment, helping law firms monetize the great innovation that they're doing within the legal sector, and helping them build teams, centralized teams, and actually turn their digital services, whether it be AI or e-discovery or whatever it may be, into a billable service for their clients. So the whole fear of losing billable time that's happening within the legal sector because of the advances AI is actually replaced by a new revenue generating team that complements the legal work. So that's a really, really interesting session in a few weeks when I've been joined by Tom at 2:00. So thanks a lot for joining us. Look out for our blog following up this session and all the other content that we'll put out in connection with digital transformation of the legal sector. Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers, Oliver. Take care.
Thanks, Matt.